Great. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for everybody's patience. Those are really good. We are having a little sustenance to support our humors as we go into this late afternoon session. We're here hopefully to finish going through the economic development bill and hopefully finishing going through our labor bills, trying to figure out what pieces we're going to keep for our labor bills probably into one labor bill, and hopefully voting on both of those bills, because tomorrow we have a lot of listening to do with housing. So we were on page 5 of the economic development bill, which is Rick. And Rick, do you want to put it up on the screen so we can look at it? But it's draft request 25-0941, and we're at draft 1.4. And we've been going through each section, checking off if people are okay, if people are not okay.
The links and then getting the invite.
I just joined.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
So we're doing the scroll.
Cheers.
I'm very worried this is going to fall on your head. Okay.
Right.
Right here if anybody wants more. Thank you to the mothers who provide. We're on section 3 on page 5.
Yes, I have the Zoom. I am logged in.
And
And I am
we had ended, yeah, okay. So we are at the section with the Vermont Arts Council, where as advocates for the creative economy, we have included their entire ask. We know that it depends on what the feds send and required. So this is a little bit beyond our control. The state has never not matched what the feds have provided. So as Randy pointed out, it could be $1,003,063, or it could be, if anticipated, correct, with the additional money that it sounds like it's coming from the feds, it would be $1,071,800. That
would be nothing.
Or sadly could be nothing.
Risk.
So I hope we're all okay on that section, because it's not really that's a federal state issue and is already in the budget and is being worked on. Are we all okay with that? But the section beyond, the section B, is the building the database, which Randy didn't you chair the film commission?
I was co-chair with
co-
Jessica Bumstead.
With Jessica. And so this goes back to a request of Randy 2 years ago, and the Arts Council has refined it. And this really builds a resource database, this proposal of $120,000. And the Arts Council would be overseeing the development of a database supporting the film and creative media industry in Vermont, which has been a big need, and would, Randy, if you'd like
I can give the 30-second explanation. When we created this task force, it was the outgrowth of the Vermont Film Commission that existed some years ago, which went away, was abolished because, frankly, it wasn't as effective as it ought to have been. It wasn't effective. And we consequently saw the movies like Moonlight in Vermont being made in Vancouver, and a whole series of things like that. Even some of our well-known filmmakers here in Vermont who are making their movies in Massachusetts, again, because of the tax holidays. We did a lot of work on this. First interesting thing about the work is where we held several public sessions, 2 public sessions, and we were overwhelmed with the number of people who actually showed up in person to testify. We had several hundred people in the sum total of those sessions. And so many of them were involved in the film industry in Vermont, but they were doing what they did because they lived in Vermont, but were working elsewhere, or traveling to Massachusetts, or traveling to New York, or traveling to LA to do what they did. One of the common denominators of this, and we looked at Films Bay in Vermont as well, was that we had a lot of people who were in the film industry who were here, but they weren't connected. And they would have done, as they testified, more here had they known of the other resources that were available here. We then went and we looked at what was happening in a number of other states, particularly those states that had been successful with their film commissions. First thing we found is I think we were only one of 3 states in the nation that didn't have a film commission. And many of the states don't have the money to give away for other purposes that many other states, larger states, did. We found that having a film commission was effective in delivering additional film products. We found that we had kids in school here who were learning things about making movies, but couldn't make any movies here because there weren't any real programs to do it or resources to do it. The bottom line is we felt that there was an opportunity to go to the next step here, to build something that got the film and movie industry available in Vermont. The number of movies made about Vermont, what was the movie about the kids from the Addams Family?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Filmed in Romania.
Yeah, and that was made in Romania, but the license plate sort of looked like Vermont.
No, it's a Vermont license plate, and they called it
Jericho.
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 Right,
They
right.
called it Jericho.
Yeah.
They could have filmed it at Converse Hall at UVM. It would have
Exactly.
been amazing.
So the bottom line, we felt, and also having listened to testimony from other states who had tried to build a film industry, having someone here who was managing the process and also gathering together and recording the resources so people could find them was an essential to getting movies that were made in Vermont, or at least partially made in Vermont. And we also felt that was a significant potential benefit to advertising in Vermont for tourism and other kinds of activities, so that there was a potential return on investment. So that's what generated this or previous versions of a need, A, to establish something, and then B, to figure out how to fund it so as to give us something that could give us some immediate return on investment. And in terms of people who are resident here, to go into a database, for example, that could, the notion is we at least increase their income, you get the income tax revenue of nothing else. So that was.
And I think your point is this would be a great resource for people who want to come and film advertising here, who want to come and film all sorts of other things that they might use, but they have no person to go to, no resource persons. So this is not in the governor's ask. It is new money, and I support it. So let's do a straw poll around. Randy?
Yes.
Okay, David?
Yes.
Tom?
Oh, yes.
And Fish.
I'm trying not to be difficult. And I hope we can keep working on this language. With the art stuff, I like to try and protect it from the same censorship that is happening to federal dollars coming down. In fact, if they have to cut resources to projects that might have been in the pipeline or are called, diversity or whatever, in some arbitrary way from what they get federally, I'd really like to make sure that our state money is available for groups that would otherwise be censored or defunded from federal dollars.
Sort of like what we did, a little bit what we did in Florida today, which is just yet another protection for something that matters, that is vulnerable to federal, regulation, to federal strong. So
without the language that signals that certain amounts of money will be given to certain people based on ethnicity or other kinds of factors, that's not in this bill.
It's not in the bill, and at the same time, their website now says we're tied to the federal.
Right, they're totally tied to the fed.
Mhm.
So I would suggest this, given where we are, I would suggest we work on this as a amendment, and that we work with Rick and with whoever on an amendment, because this will go to a pro.
And the folks can put it in if
And we can have a pro put it in. So could we do that?
Yeah, no, that's why I'm trying to just move it along and not be difficult, but say
That's
things
not
like that.
difficult. That's a helpful suggestion. That's great.
So are we taking this subsection out of this committee amendment? Committee bill?
No, I'm sorry.
No, we're going to create an amendment to protect
Got it. Okay.
anything that is subject to federal dollars,
Protect its free speech.
and particularly protect free speech. So protection from feds. Whoever thought we would have.
And what that looks like.
I'm trying to think.
I'm looking at your talent about.
We'll figure it out. We just figured it out
I don't think we can,
with our judiciary.
certainly can't replace it. 1-to-1.
Oh, no.
I mean,
No,
No, but if we're putting precious state dollars in, I would hope
Yeah.
they can be protected from that.
Well, it depends.
censorship
I mean,
of speech.
all bets are off. If we lose federal funding of a significant portion, then
Well,
we have to make bigger decisions.
we're gonna have a
Sure.
huge number of big decisions to make, sadly.
Well, he just made himself head of the Kennedy Center Court, so he cares about the arts, but
He did that a
also
couple
ones
weeks
that
ago.
he likes. So I don't think the Arts Council naturally is going away.
well, without
So
being specific, if we could put something in the bill that says that there's additional review prior
Mm,
to the expenditure of those funds for the specifics that would examine the specifics of how the funds would be used. And without being specific, that would be one way I would think that we could do that.
I still think we could do that as an amendment and take that to
As an amendment.
approach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that we can,
That way we can think about it a little bit instead of doing it
Right.
off the top of our minds.
okay. So it sounds like we're fairly unanimous on that and we can check that off. Great. Outdoor, section 4 is our outdoor recreation business appropriations. We have Jill here in the room, which is very helpful. But this is an amount to go to our VOBA, the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance. And this is designed to provide technical assistance to our outdoor businesses, to manage small group workshops and coordinate industry events. Sorry, Rick, I'm taking your job. That's your job.
No, I'm writing. You go ahead.
Okay, and so we heard from Kelly All on this. We heard from Molly. We heard from actually a whole number of outdoor businesses for Outdoor Rec Day. And Jill, do you have anything you want to just briefly, super briefly add? You don't need to
Sure.
do it from there.
Jill Sudhoff Karen on behalf of the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance, and I will just say that this this program was funded by BOREC community grant dollars before that. If you're familiar with the BOREC dollars, so that's
Yep.
the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, and they've given out about 6 million in community grants all over the state. And so this was a program that was started with that. And so we'd like to continue it because it's having really good impact.
And that money is dried up to 6 million.
Yeah,
Right.
that's one-time funding. So
That was one-time funding. Yeah. So this is to replace work that was established. Okay.
And if I can ask,
Yeah.
what may have prevented this from being considered or included in the governor's laws?
we didn't get it to the governor's. So the way it works is that BOREC administers the funding directly to the programs. And so they were given this one-time funding and then it goes through them. It doesn't go through the governor's budget specifically. It goes to the community organizations. So does that make sense?
Yes and no. So the governor didn't have visibility on this list.
No. So he did not.
Okay, so people's pleasure. I'm yes on this. What should we go around? How do you want to go? Randy, what's your feeling?
Let me think about it until we get to the end here.
Okay.
One more time.
I'm very hesitant to include anything about the governor's budget ask, but I am completely supportive of obviously of our outdoor.
You want to wait with Randy?
Well, I'm going to say yeah. Long answer to say yes, but
You're torn.
I am torn.
I hear
Spending money that we don't have.
a torn,
Dedicated
yes.
money.
Okay. Thomas,
I'm good.
great. Keisha,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something I hear about, and then we're gonna get a message back from appropriation that
we are going to find out. Not
Well, I guess that's
So-
one of the things in terms of going for appropriations, if we have in fact a short list of priorities on the list.
I
They
think,
don't make the priorities for us. If we suggest
They will.
priorities,
well,
that would make it more palatable.
I think that we will be given a box that we have to work within, and then we'll make the decision of what our
If that's the
priorities, and then
case,
we'll
that's-
take it.
If that's the
And
case,
then we'll
that's
take-
fine with me.
Absolutely. Okay, if that's the case, you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, Harvey. What's your middle initial?
Gee.
D, that's right. All right. Okay. International trade. The this is in the governor's ask, and I don't think we need to, I think we're probably all okay with this. This is the expansion of our trade offices to Asia and to Europe, and I think if we don't do this, I mean, I think we're in a challenging trade moment, so I'm very supportive of this.
And this is the governor's recommended. So was the last one, right? That's what's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, the governor, it's been very.
The last one, what?
Was the outdoor stuff was in the governor's recommended.
No, it wasn't. That was a mistake.
That was
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, before you got here, we talked about that. Okay, so we're okay on that. Section 6 is the Irish Trade Commission, and would you like to update
Sure.
us on this?
Sure.
It's you.
So yes, this is again mostly S78, which was a bill in this committee, put into this committee bill. So we went over this, was it yesterday? Again, I don't know how many days I've had them.
At one day.
24 hours, but
Yes, yeah, I think so.
talking about the membership of the commission, that didn't change. Only the language in yellow changed. And if you recall, there was discussion about disclosure on page 9. You see subsection F. I've added a sentence at the end of subsection F talking about their written report that they submit every year to the commission. The report shall also include a disclosure listing any in-kind contributions received by specific members of the commission through their work in the commission in the current calendar year, which matches with the report, which is also of the current calendar year. Curious for feedback if that's what you were thinking. Is that sufficient to cover those in-kind contributions?
I think that's good. Thank you.
All right, I'll move on to the other change I made.
Right. Keisha,
Where does this commission live?
The state treasurer's
the
office.
treasurer's office.
And the other ones? Okay. One day, they need to be trued up, and you can't have one living in the treasurer's office then.
Where does the other one?
Well, these other partnerships that we,
So those are executive
Those are done
orders.
with ACCD though,
Yeah.
the trade, you mean the trade offices?
yeah,
Those are all managed through ACCD, and
right.
maybe someday we can true them all up, but
That was my point
Yeah.
yesterday, or whenever we talked
So-
about it.
let's get this started, see how it goes, and then let's have a discussion on a permanent home for all our trade commissions.
Okay, then H1 is new language. The committee wanted the members of the commission to get the per diem that other legislators and non-legislators get in their work through, commissions or task forces. So this is the standard language that a legislative member get paid the per diem pursuant to 2 VSA 23 for not more than 6 meetings per calendar year. 2, other members shall be reimbursed under 32 VSA 1010 for not more than 6 meetings again per calendar year.
And and 6 was every other month. We thought that was a generous thing for starting. Let's use it as a start point.
And then 3 is Pat Titterton, Heidi on the call.
Pat's behind you.
So he, subdivision 3 about the payments to the commission, he might have something better than monies appropriated to the General Assembly. I'm not sure, Pat, sorry to call on you, but he flagged that as a potential discussion point.
Okay, Pat, because I think this now has a modest appropriation.
Sorry, so we're on page 10,
We're on
on
page,
16 and 17.
yeah, H1, 2, and 3. Yeah,
I think my thought, and it's in the table, that's a sort of a preliminary estimate figure for that. It's just
Right.
about actually having money set aside for the per diems. One thing I could actually suggest is if you like, might just leave the decision for how to structure that to the appropriations committee, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a little unique in that you're authorizing, usually per diems are made available in session law for sort of bespoke, like study committees, task forces, that kind of thing. But this is definitely an ongoing thing. So it might be something for them to think about whether they want to have sort of an annual authorization for per diems like this, or structure it some alternative way. I don't have a firm sort of suggestion at the moment, but that might be something that ends up getting talked about.
I think this is a good start and we can have that conversation with.
Yes. And if I didn't say, Patrick Turchin, Joint Fiscal Office, for the
Yeah.
record.
Otherwise, you're the man behind the green velvet curtain. Sort of the voice from the.
I don't know if I said my name. Rick Sagel, Office of Legislative
Who are
Counsel.
you? Right.
Yeah, I don't think I said my name. Thanks.
So, Patrick, did you have thoughts specifically about about the payments to members authorized to be made for monies appropriated?
No, I think that I don't have any comments on that. I think it's more so 1 and 2, just talking about the 6 meetings and the per diem compensation available for that.
Okay, this is, well, further discussion with approach. Great.
So just a summary, you still have subsection G. I didn't change subsection G, talking about the grants requests to defray the administrative expenses. That still is there. But now you have language saying that members of the commission get paid the standard per diem rates.
That is very clear. Any further thoughts on this? I think you've done, your work reflects our rather lengthy conversation yesterday. Okay, how are people feeling? Okay on this? Great. Terrific.
And then section 7 and 8 are the same. Just having a sunset for the commission and the appointment deadline for the commission. Okay, section 9, it was decided that this was a task force. Now it's just a task of ACCD.
Yeah.
And I just took language. It's all yellow because I didn't want to just lie and say this is existing language, but it is. I moved it around. You can compare it to the last draft. But the powers and duties are the same, or the task is the same in this case. It is soliciting testimony from startup and early stage businesses. That hasn't changed. Identifying additional mechanisms for the investor lender community. Evaluating the state's role in accessing capital. Identifying ways to offer investor education to high net worth individuals interested in investing in Vermont businesses, and evaluate any other related issues as determined by the agency.
Great.
The report is due November 1st, 2025, to this committee and the House committee.
Great. So we've gotten rid of one task force, but given a task to someone else. I think this is good. Thank you. Anybody, okay, people okay with it? Great. Then let's move to our task force.
Okay, section 10, based on feedback, and I have a couple questions here that I think should be easy to resolve. So I added the Vermont Chamber of Commerce instead of the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce. I want to make sure that's what the committee wanted.
Not trying to be Chittenden County centric here, but I just know the Lake Champlain Chamber, I thought we were adding the Vermont state in addition to that.
Yeah,
Because they-
I didn't do it.
Okay, well, that's my fault.
Okay. No, that's okay.
So,
And hello, Rob.
And hello, Rob.
right,
Yeah, and
we're going to
hello,
create
hello.
Hello.
Alice. Hello, Rutland.
Okay.
Your friend.
Well, I'll fix that in a second. Do you like, so yesterday I asked, do you just want it to be an individual that is selected by the chamber? And that didn't seem to fit what we do usually. Usually you have some kind of,
Representatives.
yes, person that has some kind of framework of, because it could be any individual that they appoint, not that they would. But I
So
said,
like the executive director or appoint
yeah, or
designee.
or a
Or
member
designee.
in this case. Okay. So do you want it to be the president or designee of the chamber?
Of the Vermont Chamber.
Yeah, that's what you.
But we also want to have the Lake Champlain Chamber back.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I know you do. So it will be 5, it will be 6. That'll be,
That will change Pat's carefully constructed table by how many dollars adding one more, just, adding one person to the,
right.
before I get, well, let me do this before I forget. Because. So it's the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce. Right?
It's the language you had before.
Bear with me. It's so you want the CEO or designate of the Lake Champlain?
Yeah.
Five. And now we have 6. Okay, so on your graphs, it's gonna be 5, but here it's 6. A representative, excuse me, of a regional development corporation who shall be appointed by the commissioner of the Department of Economic Development. This was another one where you said an individual selected by the RDCs, but the RDCs don't really have,
They
there's
have,
12 of them, but
they have an organization.
right, but there's
Has a
not like
president.
a,
Andy Jewell is the current head
okay, so you want to do the president of the RDCs?
or their designee.
Is that what
Yes.
you?
I think that's good. I would get rid of the, as much as possible.
So there is a president.
Do they have president?
I can't remember.
I believe they use the terminology chair.
Chair, he's chair of the current, so I would say chair and or designee.
The chair?
Well, what can we look?
I can
somebody have
text
a
Danny
little-
too.
Can I text Andy Jewell?
Sure, we'll text it to here, I've got it right here. What's your title?
You might not get that.
So your text, okay.
Sure, what's the question? The question is, what's your RDC title? What's your title as chair?
Who leads, what's the title of the person who leads?
Yeah. I got it.
Okay, while you were figuring that out, we have a current member of the House, chosen by the Speaker, a member of the Senate, chosen by the committee and committees, the Secretary of Commerce and Community Development or designee, the President of the Vermont Chamber of Commerce or designee, the CEO of the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce or designee, and the Chair of the Regional Development Corporations or designee. And that is indeed.
I don't see the chair designation on the website.
Well, because I know he's president or chair this year, so we'll find out. So is this the addition? Are you looking at number 5 summarized? Are you down?
Yeah, so this was, I believe, Senator Weeks' recommendation to summarize the economic impact. And again, make sure that I reflect what you all want.
Yeah, so I would, if it's okay with David, I would say that at least what I'm interested in is, and I don't know if we can summarize the economic, but evaluate the economic impact of having a convention center and not the construction of it so much, but of having one. Is that sort of that, to me, that's more of the question, is analyzing or evaluating the economic impact of having a convention center.
It's really about return on investment.
Yes,
So that's the job of an economist to do,
yes, but
not a committee of volunteers.
they can ask somebody else to do that.
Well, there's a cost though. To get an economist to do that, it's not going to be free.
Well, I think they can hopefully find some resources for getting that done. But they certainly have a lot of other states to look at to see what economic impact their convention centers and big.
But in point of fact, though, we're talking about this place, not other states. And what may make sense in Vermont may not make sense elsewhere and vice versa. And I think they need to do an econometric analysis to be at anything of any validity for us to pay attention to.
So are you suggesting that they need an appropriation to do this work?
Well, it's not going to be done for free. And if it's going to be done by volunteers, I won't have any confidence in it.
Well, you volunteer on things, you know,
I know,
confidence.
I don't have confidence in what I do either.
Yeah. I would just say,
I'd say the technical depth of both the RDC as well as the chambers, I would
And the
hope that
history.
they have some validity in what estimates they might come forward, but I'm sensitive to the point that, these things don't happen for free.
and also Randy, remember ACCD has an economist on file, in staff. Ken was the economist for a long time, and I don't know who the new economist is at ACCD, but I know they have someone who fits that profile. So I feel confident with the resources at ACCD.
They have an in-house economist today.
They have an index. Yes. There's somebody here. Oh,
Remember,
hey, am I speaking out of turn?
I'm so new. Don't ask me to name names.
But there
If
is
she doesn't.
somebody who does
I am the
economic
economist.
analysis of stuff. Yes, Austin, I'm not crazy, am I?
Yeah, SECD does have an economist. Don't ask me to name names either. But I will also say,
I'll ask
for the
you.
record, Austin Davis, Lake Champlain Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're already in the process of fielding RFPs for economic feasibility studies and raising funds for that study. I think actually the way that the chair has crafted this to have an interim deadline is pretty helpful and can also, that work can be done in parallel. I think that we also looked at this language around just capital infrastructure, operations management, et cetera, things that will inherently have some kind of governmental issue, like, connection. That would be helpful. So I think the work is going to be done in a couple of different places. I think the task force is helpful to just be a parallel conversation.
Great. Hazel.
And I got an answer. Used to be Ken Jones. It's currently vacant. It hasn't been refilled.
Okay, but they
That's
will be
fine.
filling it soon.
Okay.
So they have that position and the ACCD is going to be overseeing it. So I live in hope that we will have. Yeah, I knew Ken Jones.
I was like, I have
over
no
at
idea.
Gone fishing. Let's remember that. Andy Jewell got back to us and it's the president of the RDCs.
Thank you.
And Joan, oh no, I don't need to text Joan. Okay, great.
Okay, so we're okay with 5.
Evaluate,
I've changed on the screen. I've changed the language.
evaluate the economic impact. Can you read it for me? Who's blind?
Evaluate the economic impact of having a convention center and performance venue.
Perfect. Great.
How about return on investment?
We can add that
Or the
and
investment
it's anticipated return on investment.
If any.
Oh,
Oh,
negative.
And compare to Rutland's. Got that there.
we could have a satellite in Rutland. Okay, great. Great. Okay, so we have an interim report, which will come in 25, so that if there's anything we have to act on. And
Yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, no,
Madam Chair, I changed the date for the interim report to be November 1st, 2025. Updating this committee and the House committee on its work. And then next year, November 1st, 2026, they shall submit a final written report for any findings and any recommendations for legislative action.
great. Thomas, okay? You guys okay with this? We're gonna be asking for volunteers to serve on it. I think I have an idea of who on this committee is interested. Great. And so I think that takes us to, the effective date.
Yes.
Takes place July 1st. So, Rick, many thanks. This new draft would be
1.5.
1.5 for our voting purposes. So should we just quickly review before Keisha comes along? Keisha, is Keisha out in the hall?
About ready to vote?
Yeah, I think that we should just quickly review. I think we had, there were some concerns. Thank you. Let's just quickly review. We had support, full support for many sections. There was concern about only supporting governor's recommend and a couple sections. And I'm happy to go through all those, but if you want just to review them really quickly, I can summarize where we were, or you all have a pretty strong sense. Change, great. Because I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I'll move it. I just don't want to present it. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, but we're going to share this. because
When
I'm
I
gonna have-
typed it earlier, it said 1.4, so I want to change it to 1.5.
I'll send you once they vote.
Okay, this would be draft 1.5 on this.
So moved. That we move draft 1.5 of the constant.
Great.
Sorry.
So, thank you for this. This is great. And
Conservation development.
you okay? You amending your motion?
Well, the name of this is Conservation Development, Economic and Workforce Development, Small Business.
No.
That's the subject area.
The conservation.
That's where economic development lives in the.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. All right. I move
So-
that we adopt version draft 1.5 of the bills with the subject conservation development, economic and workforce development, small business.
But we could title it.
That's Act 9.
Yeah.
Or line 9, an act related to economic and workforce development.
Exactly.
Thank you, Frank. I'm really bad at making motions. I'm gonna stop trying to do that.
I actually did just fine. 1.5, draft 5-0941. And it is an act relating to economic and workforce development. So with that, I would ask our wonderful clerk to call the roll.
Senator Clark,
Yes.
Senator Chidley.
Yes.
Senator Robinson.
Yes.
Senator Weeks. You know, I like the bill. I just don't like the cost of it. Price, so I'm gonna vote. Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
so the vote is 4-1.
Thank you. Thank you all for your work on this. I'm happy to help report this. And Randy, I'd love it if you and I could do this, and anybody else who wants, maybe add, Thomas, you could do the convention center. You know, I think we can divide the bill up, but I'll be,
That don't cost money.
yeah, I know what sections I'm giving you. I might even need David Weeks' section that didn't.
He needs a lead reporter.
I mean, if that's okay, I'll be happy to be the lead, but I'm a good delegator, so I'm gonna delegate sections.
Sure, when we get hopefully a section by section, sometime next week, we can assign the sections.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I need to have scanned in the morning, what time it's
I
fine.
don't know if you're
Okay,
planning
great.
to-
Terrific. We're gonna take it up.
Yeah, typically.
I don't.
So I'll need you, Madam Chair, I'm gonna email you a copy Heidi, and then you'll need to email draft and operations and tell them you approve the committee bill for introduction.
Can I do that tonight?
So what I'll do is I'll email draft and operations and you'll need to say, yes, I approve for introduction.
And you'll include me on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. That is terrific. And we're gonna pivot quickly to finish our, thank you all very much. This is great. So our next task is to finish the 2 short labor bills that we didn't get to. And I would like us to do the same thing that we have just done. And Sophie, if you'd be kind enough to with us, we went through 652 very thoughtfully, and we have a notion. We had 3 options: ready to go, hold for further discussion this session, and hold for next year, and maybe never address again. But we didn't really have that as an option. But from 652, we had we finished that, which was good. So we're ready for a new draft on that at some point. Sophie, are you, if we are able to sign off on the rest of these bills, are you able to have these for us so that we can vote reasonably speedily on these tomorrow?
Yes, can you hear me? For some reason I have my video switched on, but I'm not seeing it on, so I don't know if you can see me, but I don't know if that's a setting for Heidi.
But we can hear you, so we can see, we can hear you. So I would ask, what, Heidi?
I was just thinking if I could fix it.
Is it maybe on your end?
No, it looks like she's streaming. It's weird.
Okay.
Is there
Right.
something I can do to?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you, on your Zoom settings, do you have hide self-view under the?
No, I don't.
Okay, I've done that before. So.
It's a whole switch blocking your.
Yeah, you might have a toggle at the top of your.
I've tried that too. I don't appear to have one, and this usually works. I mean, I've not had an issue with it before, so I don't know why it's being sticky today, but I'm here. I can see all of you.
Right, and we can hear you just beautifully.
Okay.
So, is it possible for us to put this bill up, or do we need it up? Because I think we all probably have a pretty good sense.
Which one do you want up? And again, I don't know if you'll be able to see my
The next one.
screen. 653.
Yes,
I did post them this morning.
There you go.
great. Okay,
We can see.
Lauren?
can we make it a little larger for those of us with poor eyesight? Thank you. Great.
One more.
Oh,
One
Randy,
more.
pushing it here. I can read subject. Thanks, that's great. Okay. So this is,
This is 653.
correct. So
Um,
this is good cause. The section, first section, Sophie, is,
this is to do with the good cause termination.
and my sense from our conversation during the course of the day that this was probably something that was a hold. And I don't know if it's a hold forever or a hold for,
Section 1.
yes, this is good cause.
No.
You're just an outright no. Okay, and anybody else?
Find it.
So yeah, that will.
It's pretty here.
Well, I think one of my sadnesses is that for this and non-compete, Rich Cassidy is a preeminent national labor expert on these things and has served on, multi-state committees on these items, and, think that many states are coordinating on language that moves in this direction, but he is unwell. And I mean, I don't have enough time today, I don't think, to fight for it in a way that will change.
So you're a, what are you feeling, Tom?
Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, I mean, if I'm hoping he's better and can come in on both of these things sometime this session. And barring that,
I mean, I think we'll certainly listen, but
Yeah.
now, no.
Okay, well, let's stop there.
But you're a hold till after crossover. You're a
I'm
hold till
holding
after
the
conversation.
crossover, and we can, I'm putting it out to others to help us find experts and people to talk to in other states, but he really, had lots of insights. I might even have huge packets from him that I fully did not digest all of. Yeah.
So I feel the same. Oh, Tom said.
I'll just say I'm a hold. I'm not a hard no. I'm intrigued by this. I want to hear from Montana what motivated them to adopt it, what their experience has been since then. But I do remember the testimony saying that this could be seen as maybe a plus to employers to some extent. So I want to educate myself, and that's probably over the summer. I don't know how busy the second half of the session is going to be, but I'm happy to reconsider this the coming spring session.
Great, thanks. I'm open to and would love to have this conversation. I feel strongly that you need good cause to do almost anything. Our children ask for it all the time, but why? Why? And people want to know why. So I think we have learned before. Anyway, that is, so the next section, so I think we're.
You had to have good cause to quit. And I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I know you are.
There's an issue of equalization of responsibility and activities.
So that goes to our economic development bill. We train better managers and better owners. I think they are on top of this earlier so that you're not at some of those places, and everybody has an exit interview. Everybody should be able to say why they're leaving, even if.
I guess we're going to is, we have volumes of business and micromanagement. This is what this comes out to be.
Oh, I don't, yeah, I think it's good. I just think good management is having people know how their performance is evaluated. People shouldn't be surprised if they know. Anyway, that's a whole long conversation, and we've just agreed to have that conversation. And I feel the same way about non-compete, section 2. I think sadly, Richard and other experts weren't available, and we tried, and I think this is a hold for a bigger conversation, sadly.
Mine is a no.
And you're a no on altogether on that?
Right.
Well, I mean, with this one, I'd rather we not, just completely reject the concept, because we have gotten no testimony. We just haven't had any testimony on the time. So, I hope people can remain open to just listening, because these are proliferating. And this is one where Rich, for example, said, people of all political backgrounds and experiences in every state was coming to a set of really sophisticated agreements on limiting non-competes, because that is really hard on an economy like ours.
non-competes that are effective, and non-competes typically have a compensation element attached to them in one way, shape, or form, so that a person is getting compensated for the non-compete. I don't have a problem with that. I've got one, in fact. But nonetheless, hard and fast, non-compete agreements as a prohibition, I do not believe is proper.
So I'm of a similar mind, but I'm curious, and I'd take more testimony. Is there places where it's being exploited or extorted or used inappropriately? And that's where more testimony and discussion, which really, but ban across the board, I'd be hesitant to get on board with that.
And we've specifically been asked to look at it for healthcare in most of the emails that received this year. But it just is, I think, helpful to understand the landscape generally, because there was about to be federal law on this as well.
Well, we were hoping there would be. That doesn't seem ridiculous. David?
That's
I echo, so I'm leaning hard, no, but I'm interested in the topic. I want to learn more about the topic, so. My inclination is all the time.
Yeah. Okay, great. Learn more. Okay, and section 3 is our right to sit. How are people feeling? I have to admit, I thought the right to sit was sort of a no-brainer. But how are people feeling after that discussion this morning, which was pretty full?
I'll jump right in. So the duplication with ADA, OSHA, and CFR leads me to believe that this is not necessary legislation. But so I'm leaning no. But if there's some testimony that can compel us that it's not properly covered in ADA, et cetera, then we can say.
I will do some due diligence, in the coming week or so to reach back out to the person who contacted me to discuss the harm he or might have experienced or witnessed around it. And he had pointed out some other states that have
But
done it.
more than that. So that's more innuendo, but why didn't ADA or OSHA cover that scenario? That's the most more.
Well,
important.
right. So yes, and maybe in that case there was no direct harm, but there was too many layers before somebody knew they could sit down or something. I don't know. I will find out.
So we'll find out a little bit more. It is, if you find out more soon, we could do it as an amendment because to our labor bill, but I think this, from what I'm hearing, this is a hold until we know more.
I'm not going to sit on this hill.
Randy, is that okay with you?
Next will be the right to snore. Continue to micromanage things. And I think this is something that OSHA, we have these things that are in existence for legitimate medical purposes that are federal in nature, and I am very reluctant to keep adding these little nits and tricks that seem to be added to everything that we do that I just don't see is appropriate. If there's a bona fide medical reason why a person needs to sit, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
I think that connects with Senator Hinsdale's point is I just think we need to know what problem we're really solving here. And that's where I think some additional information about why this needs to be done to know what problem we can solve with this action. So
We had a whole bunch of people in here this morning, including the Commissioner of Labor, standing up. Did he have a right to sit down?
No. Then Thomas wanted to write her business. So I think that what we have with 653 is an entire draft that's on hold and that we will do further work on and hope to learn more. So let's turn the section to 654. Here we're looking at the right to organize, and this goes to our discussion. Thank you, Sophie. This in some ways anticipates our discussion on Tuesday, where because on Thursday we're going to have proposal 3 is on the calendar already. It came from Senate rules and put it on the calendar. So our constitutional amendment will be on the floor on Thursday. I would really like us to take a straw poll on it on Tuesday. So this committee, I would just sort of say that is a right to organize proposal. And we have 2 rights to organize proposals here. So I would love to hear how people feel about the section 1, which is the Assistant Attorney Generals, and section 3, which is the supervising, the judiciary supervisors. So what is your feeling on section 1, which is the Assistant Attorney Generals? We've had conflicting testimony on this. So
We have, and part of the testimony that I've heard from the Attorney General and the Attorney General is that there's potential conflicts of interest, and particularly given the convoluted nature of some of the reporting relationships. So I'm very concerned about that. In which, for example, you have an assistant AG who's based, who's attached for budget and other purposes to an agency of government, but at the same time who's defending the labor relations activities of an attorney who's assigned to that group, or vice versa.
they would be excluded, I think, some of them.
So I understand your concern. I recall the testimony clearly stating that the 5 that do that would be excluded and by definition current statute. So that's why I was comfortable with it, but.
I mean,
I
you
have a
run
question
into
as
that.
to whether I really understand that based on what I've heard, both in and outside of the committee.
There are bargaining units in a lot of
Yeah.
large employment centers in the state where they're very careful about who's part of the bargaining process and how they are separate from those who might hold another title or role, and that can change around.
Mhm.
So I actually just really worry about, frankly, using that kind of argument to dampen collective organizing and bargaining, to say that someone might have a conflict of interest because their work is legal in nature, when our system is designed to mitigate conflicts of interest regardless of the type of job that you have. You could have a nurse who works with a particular, administrator who's on the other side of a bargaining unit. And
Well, we didn't really take any testimony about how are conflicts like that mitigated.
I think that's what
I think that's what Al Gordon testified to.
that he talked about, all the different structures and ways that you can mitigate.
I thought they confirmed there's a segregation of those responsibilities. It's similar in UVM. I can think of the people that deal with it. They're not allowed to be part of the staff.
Exactly.
But I'm glad you did section 1 and 3, because section 2 is where I had the most questions. I don't quite know what the implications are of that. So section 1 and 3 are where I was comfortable with. Section 2, I'm not opposed to it. I kind of just want to understand more.
The AAGs.
No, the AG's one is
So
you're
luckily,
that one.
somebody in the room who can
Okay.
speak to us to that.
The DCERT.
the DCER.
Oh,
Okay, so
sorry, I don't do numbers.
I think sections 1 and 3 are similar enough for us to, I'd love to have you. So Thomas, you're okay with sections 1 and 2?
1 and 3.
I meant 1.
Section 2, I just don't understand the
Okay,
DCER.
well, we're gonna hear a tiny bit more on that. Keisha?
I'm fine, and not only fine with all of them, I really appreciate all of them. I think the AAG one becomes the question of, like, people are in many ways acknowledging that our AAGs are underpaid and working very long hours, and they're doing that, because they love the work and care about the public interest. But I don't think we should be taking advantage of that. And that happened with state's attorneys and others, where they've said, like, just because I am passionate and this involves long hours and, some level of intensity to work in government, we can't keep attracting the best and brightest based on those considerations alone, and expecting them to feel good about their service to the state of Vermont, continually being underpaid. So, we are asking them to do quite a bit right now, especially to protect our state. And I think this is the perfect time to increase their pay and give them the opportunity. Given all of those, nuances they face and who they report to, et cetera, I can't see any other way for them to collectively increase their pay and working conditions.
And also, I'd just like to remind us, all we're doing is giving them the right to
Yes.
organize.
Thank you.
So all we're doing is extending a right. If they want to go through the huge amount of work and effort it goes to particularly the AGs, I think have a real challenge ahead of them, because they don't all work together. They work in very different places and different departments. I think they have a real challenge, an uphill battle to do it in the first place. But all we're doing here is giving them the opportunity to do it.
And there are other, I mean, there's other units that are under statewide officials that are not the governor, right?
That is correct.
That have this ability. It feels like we're saying because they're lawyers, you know, somehow they're different. And I'm struggling with that. Yes, lawyers are often in the room during bargaining, but different lawyers can be in different rooms during bargaining.
But didn't we extend this to lawyers with the deputy assistant attorneys?
Yes, Madam Chair, for the record, Tom Maldemar of Vermont State Employees Association. That's exactly right. There are a group
Which
of
is why
attorneys.
I feel comfortable doing this, because
It has been wholly unproblematic since
It
this
has.
was extended to the deputy state's attorneys.
and in full disclosure, I have a son who's managing them, and so I know that
Yes.
this
Right.
is not
There's nothing unique I can see about this situation vis-a-vis other situations in state government. And I think we have seen that there is a harm by them not being able to organize. Right, should they choose.
So fundamentally, I'm okay with people organized, but in this case, I heard two sets of testimony, which made it sound highly complex and problematic. So I'm a hold on this particular, on these two sections.
Okay.
Until what?
So we get some more testimony, some clarification if it's complex or it's not complex. You know, if it's as straightforward as, flipping the switch, okay, but it didn't sound that way.
Well, nothing is as straightforward as flipping a switch in organizing. I mean, so once they form a union, which would probably take a year or so, then as he said, they may not even all end up in the bargaining unit, depending on who they report to. And, you know, a cluster of them report directly to the AG. That would probably be, that's a pretty direct, relationship. I don't know if you want to explore like labor relations or examples of other complex entities that have bargaining units. Like, but this, it is complex, but it is, there's mountains of law to manage labor
So
relations.
you can manage it in the second half of the session. What I heard didn't compel me. This is as simplistic as other testifiers indicated. So I'm just a whole.
It's okay.
I'm a whole.
No, that's okay. I hear you. And that's on section 1. How do you feel about section 3? The supervisors, that's, I think, Thomas, did you want to say something before that?
Well, I guess to Senator Weese's point, I get the John Berard, Director of Labor
Right.
Relations testimony this morning is where I think some of the concerns were raised. And I wish he had submitted written testimony because I'd love to review some of those concerns raised, but I might go back and watch the
We'll
video.
get Todd Dalos's if you want it,
Todd
because
Dalos's.
he sent us an email.
I guess what I worry about is the whole legislature could always say things are too complex to move forward.
Wasn't the
So-
legislature, it was a testimony.
I mean, with a lot of these provisions in here, I'm really hoping people are more specific about what they'd like to hear. That would help them. So that gives even the public and those paying attention the opportunity to try and secure that testimony for us and not just us throwing our hands up and saying it's too complicated.
So we have two people who may be able to speak to this to the complexity of this, but I don't know how familiar you are with this particular request, because Tom and David are here, so.
Yeah, I believe I can speak to it, Senator. And I guess what I would say is the discussion in the testimony this morning was about what happens when a unit is initially formed. And the question of whether or not individual members, potential members, I should say, of a bargain unit will be in or will, due to inherent conflicts, be separated out into a classified employee status is a discussion that has happened with every bargaining unit that the legislature has created through enabling legislation from the 1940s when our initial units were formed until today. That happens with every single bargaining unit that's formed. The Vermont Labor Relations Forum performs that role every single time. And in the event that there is any ambiguity is about who should go in, the board resolves that. That happens as a matter of course with every bit of organizing. So any ongoing questions that would be about who should be in and who should be out are handled routinely by the board every time a new group is given the ability to organize. So I guess what would be important to clarify is any complexity that may exist is simply about who should be in and who should be out, and that's routinely handled by the board. This group does not constitute in any way a special or unique group in terms of deciding who comes in and who goes out. This happens as a matter of course every time, including, as you said, Senator, with the deputy state's attorneys, with the transport deputies who are recently organized, and that's a routine part of the creation of a new unit. Right.
But do the other creation units carry with them what is perceived to be an implicit potential conflict of interest?
The answer is yes, Senator. So, and the reason why is, for example, in the executive branch, there are in the non-management unit, in the supervisory unit, in each of those units, there's the possibility for people who were involved in the work of a confidential or confidential, excuse me, I said classified, I do want to correct myself, a confidential employee. Those who have access, for example, to payroll information, those who were involved in setting policy on behalf of management. And those folks are set aside as confidential employees and are not included. That happens in every unit that's created. So yes, those questions arise routinely in all of these other units and are decided by the board routinely in all of these other units. So there really is no special distinctive nature of this unit, this potential unit that is not present in those other units.
And I have to imagine that it can become a tide that lifts all boats, that you could have a subset of the group that can organize, and that increases the pay scale and promotes better working conditions for people who cannot be part of the unit.
I'd say that's a very apt description, Senator. And I would say folks in this building will be familiar with that conception insofar as members of this committee vote routinely on the Pay Act, in which exempt employees, for example,
Setting up opposites.
yes, no, I just mean to say that everyone in this room has been around for a Pay Act year once. Everyone in this room has been around for at least one of those discussions, and understand that there are some folks who receive a cost of living adjustment, for example, as a result of what's negotiated by folks who are in the bargaining unit, even if they themselves are not. So yes, that's right, Senator.
Great. So
Senator Ron Hill's point, how would I see solution a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now? Is to take, folks like the VSEA or other unionized representatives, union representatives. Take the two folks who indicated this is highly complex and indicated hesitation about it, send them out of the room, see if they can come to agreement, bring them back in and see if there's a parity. And if not, then we try to find out where the difficulty is.
I guess what I appreciate you sort of trying to meet me halfway. What they can't do in a short amount of time is replace the labor relations process of figuring out how to address that complexity. So they need to go through a quasi-judicial process to resolve some of those complexities if there's disagreement. We would simply be enabling them to enter that process. So it feels like a yes or no. We agree they should be able to enter that process to figure out and resolve all the conflicts. Short of that, I don't know. I guess the only suggestion I would have is, in the hopes that we really do keep this moving, although I'd like to take this vote on this today, is that you might have other bargaining units come in who went through complex negotiation. But I just, if you can imagine all of the various conflicts people have in the courts and state's attorneys and, all kinds of really complicated situations, those have not been resolved here. So I'm not sure what the answer you were looking for would be.
I guess the only thing I'll say is I do too support moving this forward because I'm comfortable with it. But I mean, if we vote yay or nay on the committee bill, that doesn't obligate you to how you vote on the floor too. So if you get more information between now and when it finally comes up on the floor next week, which actually could be the week after, then I just reminded you of that too. So maybe if there's time between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to follow up with John or collect more perspective on this with the complexity, might sway your vote one way or the other.
And this morning's discussion helped me. Al helped clarify the lack of those who had conflicts or potential conflicts would be excluded from being able to even participate in the bargaining unit. So that's because I'm appreciative of Randy's concern with that. So that made me much more comfortable with this. And other than that, it's complex because it's a diversified employment group there and very spread out, unlike a lot of other people who are working together under one roof. This is a group of people who are quite dispersed in state government. So I think it's complex in that regard, but I think other than that, it just gives them an opportunity to organize if they want to. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with moving this forward at this point, along with section 3. But I also, so Randy, you haven't weighed in yet.
Well, again, I am concerned as to whether or not we've heard everything that we need to hear to really understand conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest. We've essentially, and again, I guess we've gotten the AG representative input, and it seems to be that's the only source that sort of is in opposition, if you will.
Well, I would say John Berard was not
overwhelmingly enthusiastic, but I just have a feeling I haven't heard the entire story. That's as much a gut feeling. Maybe I have.
Was there more opposition than John Berard?
The AG's office.
Oh,
Another day.
Yeah, the AG's office.
Todd Davos.
written testimony you told me to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he brought up the same things that John Berard
Yeah.
did. There was no difference in information there.
So that's the piece that concerns me. I'd just like to hear more on it, because the only reason I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but by any means, but I just have a feeling that I haven't heard everything that I ought to hear.
So how do you feel about section 3, which is, I think, perhaps a little more straightforward, which is the right for the judiciary supervisors to right to organize? David, how did you feel about that? You're okay?
Yeah. I don't have a problem. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think, David, you had, so let's just hold on section 1 for the moment, as we, because we just have 2 other sections to discuss here, because time is getting way late. Section 2 is the right to decertify, and I believe this is a change from requiring 30% to 50% plus 1. Is that right? That's the change that's being asked for here. And I think, David, you had some questions. We have Tom and David here to respond to, and you have to clarify, Tom, what this enables.
Yes, so to be very clear, Senator.
It was Tom Chittenden who had.
Oh, I apologize, Senator.
Was it Tom Chittenden?
Yeah. So does this just make it more, raise this threshold to be decertified? So it goes from the 30% to have that vote to requiring 50% to just, no, I'd love you to explain it to me.
Yeah, very, very simply, Senator, this committee, I believe it was either last year or the year before, voted to institute hard check elections for the certification of a new unit. And when that occurred, it set up a slight disjunction between certification and decertification, excuse me. It made it, perhaps unintentionally, I think certainly unintentionally, it made it easier to decertify a unit than it is to certify a unit. And as a result, this provision would simply bring the ability to decert into parity with the ability to certify a unit. The thinking is being very straightforward. There should be parity, and it certainly should be no easier to decertify a unit than it should be to certify a unit.
So that's the 51%, 50%, as opposed
It's 50% plus 1 person.
That's correct.
And they should balance it. That's the balance.
Exactly
And
correct.
apply that.
Yeah.
Just
Could I add something?
Yes, absolutely.
I know when we walked through this before, I think one of the questions I have is that there are several ways that unions can get recognized. So one is voluntarily by the employer. The other 2 main ways are through an election or through card check. So one of the questions I had flagged when we went through this is that the proposed language here is attached to the section on elections. So for an election, the union needs to come up with 30% of the employees saying, yes, we would be interested in forming a bargaining unit. And then at that point, an election is held. For card check, which is a separate process, there's no election. For card check, it's 50% of the employees plus 1. So the confusing thing to me about the way this is framed right now is this language about the 50% plus 1, and again, it's that 51 is incorrect as we heard this morning. This is following the section on the election. It's not part of the card check one. So I guess I just want to make sure that the committee is aware that, there could be one way to do it would be to be consistent. So to decertify a union, if you have an election, you can come forward with 30% of the unit saying we'd like to decertify this particular representative organization and have an election. Or the other alternative would be 50% plus one as a card check. So just come forward and you've just got signatures from 50% plus one saying, we would like a different unit, or, we want to decertify this particular unit. This is kind of straddling both. So I just want to make sure the committee is aware that personally, this seems confusing the way it is right now, I guess is my point.
And for all intents and purposes, what you're saying is if you want to have parity to methods, you would use in effect a reverse card check to decertify, which would require conceivably 30% and then a vacation or an election. But if you wanted to certify it in its entirety a la carte check, if you do 50% plus one, you could do that without having an election. Does that make sense?
If I may,
Yes.
Senator, I think the reason that the decision was made to structure it this way is that in the several union elections since card check has gone into place, card check has been by far the preferred method for organization, and the certification method through election, although still on the books, is at this point very infrequently used in organizing campaigns. So essentially, to some degree, it's the card check method has superseded the election method. So given that is far more common, it seems to us that has become the primary way that union elections occur. And so simply the intent was that the primary way that they occur, the numbers should be equal to that of the primary way that they would go occur through decertification. So that's the intention of having the threshold be the same as card check, even though the election section is still on the books.
I would just, if that's the case, then I think probably this section would just need to get moved down to the card check section. It's just in the wrong place, I think, is at the moment.
So right now, to decertify, they need 30% and to have an election to decertify.
That's correct. And I want to be very clear. It's from our perspective, certainly it's essential that the ability to decert be no easier than the ability to certify unit. And so as a result, it was this committee's position, which we certainly support, that it would not be appropriate to allow decertification through card check. We're just talking about getting the number of people in a unit to be equal to the number of people in a unit who are typically going to be used to certify a unit through the card check process.
Would this get rid of that 30% threshold to have a decertification vote?
It would supersede it, yes.
Okay, so now to decertify, they would have to get 50 plus 1% of people to card check to decertify.
No, not through card check, to have an election.
To have an election.
To decertify.
That's correct.
How many other states have that? Is this abnormal?
I can't speak to senators in the number of states who have it.
So I don't understand the far-reaching implication of potentially adjusting this decertification threshold. So I'm a hold for now.
It seems to me they ought to be balanced.
Yeah, I have a lot of
and I can say
interest in parity.
If this discussion continues as you're suggesting on the whole process, we can certainly have Al Gordon O'Connell again, who is our premier labor lawyer, obviously within BSCI, come here to clarify the ambiguities that you were discussing.
It might just be a visual, I think I get it.
Post date.
But you're creating parity.
I'm happy to reach out to him and have him come in.
Okay, right. So we could, if we can do that, maybe early next week, we could even have an amendment to clarify this. If we are going to do a straw poll,
Yeah, I
maybe
just
we
think it's
make
important to
Tuesday.
solve it, and I would just simply like to see parity.
Okay. So maybe we could do that as an amendment on our labor bill for if we take testimony on that on Tuesday. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Is this being weaponized? Like, are people?
Yeah, frankly, yes. The reason that we're interested in making sure that the threshold is a bit higher than it is currently is, to be very blunt, there have been organizations throughout the country that have been using lower decertification thresholds in order to trigger decertification elections with the explicit purpose of exhausting the resources of unions throughout the country.
You see that with appeals. Yeah.
Exactly right. That's a good analogy.
Okay.
So would you be kind enough to email
Sure.
us as to who we should hear from and what other states? Maybe we could also find out what other states.
I'll reach out to Albert.
Okay, anybody else on this? Okay. So are we okay with that?
So to normalize this for me to get to yes, I'd love to know how common this is in other states. So I'm sure a whole.
As I say, I don't want to pass something that is going forward and is contingent upon an amendment that we haven't seen the form of and don't fully understand. That's not the way to do business.
I think if
Again,
we can,
if there is in fact parity, I tend to support it. But I don't right now, I don't have enough information to say.
Let's bring it up in the House. If we don't get it in this bill, bring it up in the House and we'll have time to get our stuff.
Well, VSEA had to deal with a change that ended up in the veto session, you know,
Right.
I don't want them to just be like,
Okay,
oh, a
so-
few days later.
So far, we're okay with section 3
What I, yeah.
and section 1. Section 1, if we're gonna take time on Tuesday and see if we have an amendment here, do you think the questions that the two of you have on section 1, do you think those could be dealt with more time with Todd Delos and Al Gordon?
See, it's up to
Okay, and if we can't get to yes on that, then we would put it, we would figure out how we're gonna move on that. Okay, so the last thing we have, do you have something you want to add?
well, I mean,
Because I'm trying.
yeah, I am trying to understand if it's better to move lots of little pieces different places or just pretty much some of the whole thing seem like I could get to yes with just a little bit more time and testimony. And that is the kind of bill that can be brought to rules if it has, you know, a 5-0 vote, and because we've done our due diligence and we've answered the questions rather than, I'm just wondering like what's left in the bill if we're
Learned, not
holding
learned,
anything.
the labor relations board on this one. Oh, we have the pieces that we've been tracking there. We've had said yes to several pieces in a labor bill. So we have a labor bill. The last question for today, I think, and then is the labor relations board,
Oh,
section 4.
sure.
So I do think we have to figure out if our questions can, because I'm happy to do an amendment to a bill, but I'm not happy if, I think we can resolve the decert by moving it, right, Sophie? We're gonna move it to the section that's appropriate for card check. And we're gonna get some more answers from Al and we can get some national data on.
But in terms of the decert, when you say move it, it's gonna be with the decertification. Is your intent to have a petition 40% or 50%?
I mean, in the section, she said it was in the wrong
I
section.
realize it's going to the wrong section, but
Right.
I'm interested in the number. The section doesn't matter, particularly to me. The number does.
Would you like me to?
Yeah.
So the intention, Senator, is to raise the threshold for decertification through its only valid method to the same percentage that is used through certification through card check. That's 50% also.
Which is now the most common way unions are formed is through card check.
Correct.
And it is being weaponized by going at the lower number.
That's correct.
Does it auto decertify or does that just trigger an election?
Triggers and elections.
But in card check, you get 51 and it
Correct.
just goes.
And I want to be very clear. Our position is not that
51% decertified.
Correct.
You want the election.
We want the election in that case as well. And the reason this is our position, Senator, is because we're seeing evidence of the weaponization of that lower threshold.
I'd love to just normalize this with other states. I'm not against
Yeah, I
it.
really want, I really want
I don't know.
Okay.
to. Does anybody else do this?
Well, there must
I,
be.
I,
Yeah.
I believe that's, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so we need to find that out.
Understood.
We'll take some time Tuesday.
With regard to that subsection, Senator, we can
Because otherwise I'm very sympathetic to making it, to creating that parity. Okay, last thing, section 4. We heard from, Judith Dillon, the, only full-time employee of the Labor Relations Board. And we've heard from other labor people here in the room during the course of the day, how over, their caseload is over the top. And we certainly heard from her the same is true. She's asking for $250,000, not in the governor's budget, but a real need for one more lawyer and one more part-time person, and making her part-time person full, I believe, a full-time person. And that is what that 250 is. But my understanding is that it's about.
The issue is caseload.
Issue is caseload, and I think everyone who deals with them appreciates that. And sadly, I think everybody. Well, anyway, we heard that testimony again today. So, Keisha, you. I'm supportive of this, and I just would love to know how other people feel.
We're gonna need more lawyers when I look at the federal landscape and.
Oh.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I go along with it.
Yeah. Okay. Randy, yes. Allison, yes. Keisha,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And Tom.
I said yes. but I don't
Okay.
know.
Sorry.
So I fundamentally, I understand and agree with the additional manpower, but I'm still curious why the administration's has not supported this effort on their own. And this is something that had to come up with this kind of bill. That to me is a little bit unsettling.
Well, they don't answer to any.
They're not under the
Secretary.
administration.
They're, it's like our
They're independent.
independent funding, the judiciary.
They're quasi-judicial, and so they are independent. As far as I understand from their structure, they're not part of the administration.
We had to draw it out of Judith that the reason things are delayed is because she is one person.
So yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Sophie,
Yes.
I think we're ready to take a vote on this, but my understanding is we would have a labor bill at the moment with the pieces, you're clear, I think, on the pieces from 652. None of the pieces currently from 653. And at the moment, sections 3 and sections 4 from 654.
And to add those into the draft bill I already sent around earlier today. Okay.
To make a miscellaneous labor bill. We will continue to have more testimony on Tuesday. And that will enable us to do an amendment if we need to on AAGs and on DCERT.
So I just want to say, I read the note from Todd Dayla's speed read it, and I am comfortable with section 1, but I'm happy to do that as an amendment on Tuesday as well. I'm good with section 1.
And how are you?
Attorney General.
And you both would like to hear a little bit more. Okay. So I honor that, and because I'd really love to get us all on this. If we're all together on section 3, I'd love to have us all together on section 4.
So we either today in committee or over the weekend have expressed who we need to hear from. With some sense of, yes, there might be new information that comes to light, but I want to make sure that this is information that we can reasonably get next week.
Yeah, and yes, I hear that we would like to hear from Al Gordon, get national figures from DCERT. So Al Gordon on DCERT and national figures of what other states are doing it. AAGs, we want to hear from Delos and Al Gordon.
So, but the key there being in the same room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so we can discuss it.
Yeah, like that.
Well, let's assume that those are the only 2 people that we can talk with. Who give us the
And then
information.
I have to make it incumbent on all of us to find out who the additional people we need to hear.
Then to do that over the weekend.
No, tomorrow we could.
Well, maybe a question would be, is there another very complex bargaining unit that someone can think of that could help illustrate this for us?
I just have to say, and I apologize, I don't mean to split hairs. In our opinion, and in Al Gordon's opinion, this is not a very complex bargaining unit.
Right.
This is a very routine and straightforward.
That's what it strikes me as.
And I will just say,
You're state employees, like it's complex.
it's in no way
You're
dissimilar.
dispersed too.
Yeah,
State
exactly.
employees.
Correct. We are, for example, the non-management unit, the largest bargaining unit in the state, involves people in wholly separate positions spread across every department and agency in the executive branch. So I can't agree, of course, with the characterization that it's
Right.
complex.
Would it be, and I agree, would it be the state's attorneys or the treasurer's office or some group that meet some characteristics that
To normalize this.
can normalize that?
I'm happy to help brainstorm what that might look like, although I have to say, given how similarly situated I think they are to every other bargaining unit, it's difficult for me to think about what the special characteristic would be that they would share with some other unit.
What about AAGs who are organized in another state?
I know Al spoke this morning to the fact that this is the trend nationally,
Yes.
is the
So
organization.
then, that's fine.
Would
Like,
Al find-
by Tuesday, if we could find another state that would be willing to testify on how they organize the AAGs and how,
I'm certainly happy to try to make.
that would be great. So let's do that for Tuesday, Thomas.
Is Sophia real time pulling this together for a vote tonight? Is that?
No, she's pulling it together for, we'll vote on, we'll look at it because we're pulling together these pieces from 3 different drafts. We're gonna pull them together and we will look at them and we will vote on it tomorrow.
Okay. And then the amendment discussion for Tuesday.
So to that, that's no problem. I can get that drafted. The workers' comp stuff that was agreed on is already drafted, so I can add these 2 sections. What time tomorrow do you need it? Because I need to let drafting operations know, so they can, plan their staffing around reviewing it.
Hour. I want to say that.
So let's say 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I, just to be clear, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow morning, and they're like impossible to reschedule. So I'm hoping to be here by probably 11:30 tomorrow, but I can make sure that gets sent to you, so everyone can see it.
Can you be on Zoom with us at 11?
I could be on Zoom earlier if I didn't have to drive in. The challenge is I've got like an hour and 15-minute
you know what? Maybe
commute.
we can go off live at this moment and that's like pieces. Let's. Okay.
I could, if we're offline, I could probably be available by 10:15 on Zoom if that works.
Why don't we aim?
Still on.
It isn't like a private conversation.
No.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
I've already heard about the tennis, right?
Yeah, we already heard. Great. Why don't you aim? I think we'll just be able to take some time at 11 to review it. I think we've made our decisions. I think we voted on each section. We're looking at them all together in one miscellaneous labor bill, which is what we're going to call it. And we will begin at 8 tomorrow morning looking at, we need to make with John Gray some value decisions. And these are the 2 decisions I need you to think about overnight, which is, we have two value decisions to make. One is it affordable housing? If it is affordable housing, what percent, where is the percent of income that we're looking at?
Right. That means missing middle. Is it at all? Is it income based? And then I would propose missing middle recommendation about it.
Right. Or do we do it just housing? And the other is the percent of housing versus mixed use versus anything else. So those are the 2 decisions we really need to make tomorrow morning. John will be with us. And I just would like to have you think about that. One proposal I had made after talking to a couple advocates was to think about using a high threshold of 575% of federal poverty level, which is the same that we're using for childcare, which would make it more middle income, middle and below. And Jessica sent us the chart and I'm happy to send it to you all again tonight. I couldn't print it out last night because the printer wasn't letting it print.
and I'm happy to do this live. I just want to honor that Cameron like stayed extra long to get me a draft of the housing bill that's actually become quite my housing proposals.
In addition to the ones you have embedded in our bill.
Oh, yeah. That have become quite brief because these were ones where we had to pull apart what would be introduced in this committee versus the natural
Okay, so
resources.
these are the ones appropriate.
But everyone gets a copy,
to look at.
and it's now public. They're short and I think they're really valuable.
So we
And they're
each have a
ones that
copy?
I've got
Okay.
it.
Sorry.
So I'd love for people to contemplate and people watching can see some of these proposals there.
These proposals are
That just-
probably gonna be dealt with further.
We may have to do them as an amendment because we may need a little more
These are
time, but,
proposals that we're going to be looking at for tomorrow.
we
Or
can,
whenever.
yeah, We
I'm
can-
just
they
saying,
just-
it's just not something that we're trying to do before processing.
I think,
If some of them I have previewed and anyone who would have had a comment has been into our committee to discuss them, but some have not. There are very few.
take a read of them and then I think we will probably have to either think, these are easy and we can incorporate them. Or they'll require further conversation and we can either get permission to extend or we can do them as an amendment.
Or people can look at this, which is posted on our website of draft 1.1 of something. Well, what did you name?
I'm naming it right now, miscellaneous housing petitions, because that's what.
You could, yeah, miscellaneous housing amendment. Okay, Senator Ron Stelter. Okay, so that's what it's called. And I would love for people to start getting in touch with us. Because I think these are some of the things that will change housing policy that excludes people from having different types of housing.
Great. And on that note, we are really going to